It started with the red dress. I knew that dress. It wasn't the kind of thing Jess wore for random dinners or casual drinks. It was her weapon, something she used to drop jaws and turn heads. Low cut, tight in all the right places, showing just enough leg to drive anyone crazy. When she walked out of the bedroom in it that night, something twisted in my gut. "Where are you going dressed like that?" I asked, trying to sound casual, even though my pulse was picking up speed. She didn't flinch. Jess was brushing mascara onto her lashes, standing by the mirror like it was just another Tuesday night. "Oh, I told you about this. Drinks with Rebecca and the girls." "No, you didn't." I stood up from the couch, watching her reflection in the mirror. She didn't even pause. "Yes, I did." There it was. The lie. Quick, smooth, and confident. But I knew my wife. And that dress wasn't for her friends. It wasn't for some random night out. That dress was bait. "Rebecca's in Italy," I said, crossing my arms. This time, Jess faltered. Just a second, a blink, a flicker, but I caught it. "She got back early." Bullshit. Still, I played along. "Right? Okay. You need a ride?" "No," she said, grabbing her clutch. "I'll Uber." Her phone buzzed just then, lighting up on the dresser. She snatched it quickly, but not before I saw the name on the screen. Jason. The knot in my stomach twisted tighter. "Who's Jason?" I asked, my voice calm. Too calm. She slipped the phone into her bag, brushing past me like I hadn't just asked the most obvious question in the world. "Coworker. Nothing important. Coworker, right?" I wasn't stupid. No one hides a text from a coworker. She kissed me on the cheek. Light, rushed, distracted, and walked out the door before I could say anything else. I stood there for a long time after she left, staring at the door. The silence in the house felt louder than ever. And I wasn't standing there because I was shocked. No, I was angry, because deep down I already knew the truth. I didn't want to admit it, but it was there, gnawing at the edges of my mind. The late nights, the sudden changes in her mood, the phone always face down on the table. And now Jason. I grabbed my phone and opened her Instagram. Sure enough, no pictures from tonight. No tags. No stories. Nothing that would suggest she was out with friends. I checked Rebecca's profile next. She was still posting photos from Venice. Jess hadn't just lied to me. She hadn't even bothered to cover her tracks. It was like she thought I was too stupid to notice. That's what stung the most. The disrespect. The carelessness. I tossed my phone on the couch and started pacing. My mind was racing. Was this new? Had it been going on for weeks? Months? Years? How long had she been sneaking around behind my back? Suddenly, my phone buzzed. A message from an unknown number. "Are you free to talk?" I frowned, typing back. "Who is this?" The reply came instantly. "You don't know me, but I think we need to talk about your wife." The message stared back at me, cold and direct. "We need to talk about your wife." I sat down, heart pounding, my thumb hovering over the screen. Every instinct screamed that this was some sick joke. Spam, maybe. A wrong number. But something about it felt personal. Too specific to ignore. I typed back, "What the hell are you talking about?" The dots appeared instantly. Whoever this was, they were waiting for me to respond. "Jess, I've been seeing her. I didn't know she was married." My breath caught in my throat. For a second, the room tilted, like reality had shifted and left me on unstable ground. Seeing her, there it was. The confirmation I didn't want, but somehow already knew was coming. Before I could think, I dialed the number. It rang twice before a man's voice answered, shaky and nervous. "Hello." I didn't bother with pleasantries. "Who the hell are you?" A long pause. Then he sighed. "My name's Jason." Jason, of course. The name from her phone. "I met Jess a few months ago. She told me she was single. I swear, I had no idea she was married until I saw your picture on her Instagram." I clenched my jaw. My voice came out cold and sharp. "Why the hell are you telling me this now?" Another pause. I could hear him fidgeting with something on the other end of the line. "Because I thought you should know. And because she's with someone else now. Not me." The words hit me like a slap. "She's cheating on you too?" "Yeah." He let out a bitter laugh. "She's been seeing some guy named Eric. I found out last week and confronted her. She told me I was just a fling, said I wasn't important. I've been trying to get over it. But then I saw your picture and, I don't know, it felt wrong to keep quiet. I sat back, trying to process what I was hearing. My wife wasn't just having an affair. She was juggling multiple men, lying to all of us. How long were you two involved? I asked. 3 months, Jason said quietly. It started at some charity gala. She said she was lonely, that she wanted someone to make her feel alive again. I gritted my teeth. That gala. I remembered it. I couldn't go because of a work trip. Jess had gone alone, looking stunning in a black dress. She'd sent me a picture, all smiles and champagne. And the whole time, she was already hunting for someone else. Jason kept talking, his voice filled with bitterness. I know I screwed up. I shouldn't have been with her. But I swear, I didn't know she was married. When I found out about you, I ended it. I didn't know what to say. I felt like I was suffocating under the weight of everything. I'm sorry, Jason said after a long silence. I really am. I thought you deserved. That hit harder than anything else. She's a liar, he continued, voice growing more bitter with every word. She lied to me, to you, to Eric. She's been playing us all. I hung up without saying goodbye. I couldn't listen anymore. My hands were shaking as I set the phone down. Jason's words echoed in my head. She's not who you think she is. I stood up and grabbed my coat. Jess wasn't home yet, but I wasn't about to wait around like a fool. I was done sitting in the dark. I needed to see this with my own eyes, and I knew exactly where to start looking. At Eric's place. I drove like a man possessed. Every streetlight blurred past, but my mind was sharper than ever. It wasn't anger driving me, not yet. No, it was clarity. Jess was a liar. She had 2 affairs running at once. Maybe more. The woman I'd spent years building a life with wasn't just cheating. She was crafting a double life. And tonight I was going to expose every inch of it. Jason had given me the address. Eric's place. She goes there on Tuesdays. It was Tuesday. As I pulled up to Eric's building, my stomach churned. I parked down the street, far enough that no one would notice me, but close enough to see the entrance. That's when I spotted her car. Jess's sleek silver Audi was parked right out front. Bold as hell. No attempt to hide. No shame. Like she didn't care who saw. I got out of my car and walked toward the building, each step heavier than the last. My fists clenched at my sides, my pulse hammering in my ears. I could see a light on in one of the upstairs windows. Was she in there now? With him? I wasn't sure what I was going to do. Knock on the door? Burst in? Confront them both? My thoughts were spiraling when fate intervened. The front door clicked open. I froze. A man stepped out, holding a gym bag, his headphones in, completely oblivious to the storm brewing just feet away. He left the door slightly ajar. My chance. I slipped inside before the door closed. The building was quiet. Too quiet. I stood in the dim hallway, staring up at the stairs, knowing exactly where I was headed. Apartment 3B. The light from outside gave me just enough to see by as I climbed the stairs. Every creak of the wood felt deafening, like the building itself was warning them. Turn around. A voice in my head whispered, "You don't want to see this." But I did. I reached the 3rd floor, heart pounding so hard it felt like it would burst out of my chest. The door to 3B was slightly cracked, just enough for me to hear voices inside. Jess's voice, laughing. It wasn't the laugh I knew, warm, familiar, loving. This was different, flirty, carefree, the kind of laugh she hadn't shared with me in years. I took a slow, steadying breath and leaned closer. "Come on, Jess," a man's voice said. "Eric, stay the night." I clenched my fists. "I can't," Jess replied, still laughing. "I have to get home. You know how it is." Eric chuckled. "No, I don't. Why don't you just end it already? He doesn't make you happy." Her reply was instant. "It's not that simple. Not that simple." I gritted my teeth. They were talking about me like I was some inconvenience, like I was nothing more than a barrier to their fun. And then, Eric said the one thing that pushed me over the edge. "You're wasting your time with him. He's a joke, Jess." I didn't think. I just acted. I kicked the door open. Jess screamed, jumping to her feet, her hand flying to her mouth. Eric froze, eyes wide, halfway through pouring a drink. For a moment, we all just stood there. Surprise? I said, my voice low and deadly. Jess recovered first. What the hell are you doing here? She snapped, her tone sharp, defensive, like I was the one in the wrong. I could ask you the same thing, I shot back. Having a cozy little date night, are we? Eric stepped forward, raising his hands like a coward trying to calm a raging bull. Look, man. Don't. I pointed at him. Don't say a word. You knew. You both knew. Jess rolled her eyes, like she was annoyed. Annoyed. Can you not make a scene? This isn't what you think. I laughed, the sound bitter and harsh. Really? Because it looks like my wife is standing in some other guy's apartment, dressed to kill, sipping wine and laughing her ass off. Eric took a step back, like he suddenly realized he wasn't as brave as he thought. I saw fear in his eyes. Good. Kohanik moje newiernej zoni uwazel sie zie bohatera. Ale sibko zaxel plakak I blagak. Zebim preserwal zemst. And I wasn't done yet. The tension in the room was suffocating. Jess stood there, trying to mask her panic with that same smug attitude I'd seen too many times before. But Eric, he wasn't holding up so well. His hands were trembling, his eyes darting toward the door like he was already planning his escape. Who the hell are you? I asked, staring him down. You think you're some kind of hero? Stealing another man's wife. Eric swallowed hard, but he didn't answer. His jaw clenched, trying to play tough, but the fear was etched into his face. Jess stepped between us, arms crossed like she was bored of the whole thing. Oh, come on, Noah. Stop with the theatrics. It's not like this is some big shock. I whipped my head toward her. What did you just say? You heard me, she said, raising her chin defiantly. Don't act like you didn't know. You've been snooping, haven't you? Checking my phone, following me. Honestly, it's pathetic. Pathetic. I took a step closer. Jess didn't flinch. She was standing her ground, doubling down on her lies. You really want to play this game, Jess? I said quietly. You want to pretend this is my fault? She shrugged. It takes two people to ruin a marriage, Noah. Maybe if you weren't so busy trying to control everything, I wouldn't have had to look elsewhere. Eric shifted uncomfortably behind her. Elsewhere? I repeated. Like Jason? Or is it just Eric now? Jess's face flickered for a second, surprise, maybe, or guilt, but she recovered quickly. Jason was nothing, and you don't know what you're talking about. Eric finally spoke up, his voice shaky. Look, I don't want any trouble. I laughed, a bitter, cold laugh that echoed through the apartment. Trouble? You think this is trouble? I took another step toward him, and he backed up, nearly tripping over the coffee table. You walked into my life, into my marriage, and now you're scared. Jess grabbed my arm, trying to pull me back. Noah, stop. This isn't you. I shook her off. No, Jess, you don't get to say that. You don't get to act like I'm the problem here. I turned back to Eric. Did she tell you about me? About our life? Our plans? Or did she just feed you some sob story about how miserable she is? Eric stammered, his confidence crumbling with every word I threw at him. She said you were distant, that you didn't care. I laughed again, shaking my head. Of course she did. Jess crossed her arms. Well, it's true, isn't it? No, Jess, it's not. I looked her straight in the eyes, my voice steady now. You lied. You lied to him, to Jason, to me. You didn't want out of this marriage. You wanted everything. The stable husband at home and the fun on the side. You wanted to see how far you could push it before it all fell apart. Her face twisted into something ugly. Don't you dare put this all on me. You did this, I said, my voice rising. You tore us apart. You destroyed everything. And for what? For this guy. I pointed at Eric, who looked like he wanted to disappear into the floor. What makes him worth throwing your entire life away? Eric held up his hands again. Look, man. Shut up, I snapped. You're not a hero. You're not special. You're just a pawn in her game. His face turned pale. I didn't know she was married. That's not an excuse. I took another step forward, my voice dropping to a deadly calm. Do you know what I do to people who try to destroy my life? Eric's eyes went wide. He took a step back, shaking his head. No, no, listen. I didn't move, didn't blink. I just stared him down, watching as the tough guy act crumbled. Jess grabbed my arm again. Noah, that's enough. But I wasn't done. Not yet. You thought you were the hero, didn't you, Eric? I said quietly. The knight in shining armor, rescuing her from a miserable marriage. But guess what? Heroes don't end up begging for mercy. Eric's voice cracked. I'm sorry, man. Please. I didn't mean for this to happen. There it was. The begging. I leaned in, my voice low and venomous. Then you should have stayed the hell away from my wife. He backed into the wall, his hands shaking. Jess was yelling at me now, telling me to stop, but I barely heard her. This wasn't about her anymore. Eric was exactly the kind of guy she'd been looking for, weak, desperate, and willing to believe every lie she told. And now, he was terrified, just the way I wanted him. Eric was pressed against the wall, looking at me like I was the devil himself. His hands were shaking, his face pale, and I could practically see the sweat dripping down his neck. I took a step back, letting the silence hang heavy in the room. Jess stood in the middle, arms crossed, tapping her heel on the floor like she was impatient for this whole thing to be over. Like I was wasting her time. Noah, you've made your point, she said coldly. Congratulations. You scared him. Are you happy now? Happy? I stared at her. This woman I'd once thought I knew. The woman I'd shared my life with. There was no remorse in her eyes. No guilt. Nothing. Just irritation. Why are you acting like this is my fault? I asked quietly. Jess rolled her eyes. Because you're overreacting. You've always been dramatic, Noah. It's exhausting. Eric tried to slip toward the door, but I blocked his path without even looking at him. You're not going anywhere, I said without raising my voice. Not until we're done. He froze, nodding quickly like the coward he was. Jess let out a frustrated sigh. God, can you just stop? You're embarrassing yourself. Embarrassing myself? I took a slow step toward her. You think I'm the one who should be embarrassed? You've been sleeping with this idiot and lying to me for God knows how long. And I'm the one making a fool of myself. Her expression hardened. It's not that simple. Oh, it's not? Then explain it to me, Jess. Enlighten me. She crossed her arms tighter. You think this is all black and white? That I'm just some villain and you're the innocent victim? You were checked out long before any of this happened. Checked out? I echoed, laughing bitterly. I worked late because I was trying to build a future for us. I put in the hours so we wouldn't have to worry about money. Everything I did, Jess, was for you. Yeah. She took a step closer, her voice rising. And what did I get in return? A husband who was never home. A man who cared more about his job than his wife. That's bullshit, and you know it. No, it's not. Her voice dropped, deadly calm now. I got tired of being second place. Of being the boring housewife while you played the hero. So yeah, I went looking for something else. Something exciting. And you know what? She smirked. I don't regret it. Eric's face twisted in shock. Even he wasn't expecting that level of cruelty. I nodded slowly, letting her words sink in. You don't regret it. Nope. She popped the P like it was a joke. I turned to Eric, who was now shrinking into himself. You hear that? She doesn't regret a damn thing. You think you're special? You're not. You're just a pawn in her game. Eric shook his head, his voice barely a whisper. I didn't know. You didn't know because you didn't want to know. I shot back. She played you just like she played Jason, and God knows how many others. And now you're standing here, begging me not to lose my temper. Jess sighed, running a hand through her hair. This is so pathetic. Why do you even care? If you're so angry, just divorce me already and move on. I laughed again. This time it wasn't bitter. It was dark. Move on? After everything you've done. Her eyes narrowed. What do you want from me, Noah? An apology? Fine. I'm sorry you found out. Happy? Sorry I found out. I repeated the words slowly, tasting the venom in them. You're not sorry for what you did. You're just sorry you got caught. Jess shrugged. Call it what you want. Eric shifted nervously again. I should go? I pointed at him. No. You stay. You need to hear this. He froze again, swallowing hard. I turned back to Jess. You've lied to him, to me, to Jason. You've destroyed everything we built. And for what? For fun. The words hit me like a punch to the gut. Jess smiled, her eyes cold. You want the truth, Noah? There it is. I did it because I wanted to, because I could, and because I liked it. Eric gasped quietly. Even he wasn't ready for that level of honesty. She's a monster, I said, pointing at Jess. And you're her puppet. Eric finally found his voice. I didn't know. Jess rolled her eyes. Stop acting like a victim, Eric. You knew exactly what this was. You just didn't want to admit it. The silence that followed was deafening. For the first time, Eric looked at Jess like he was seeing her clearly. The charm was gone. The lies had unraveled. And what was left was ugly. I need to go, he whispered, his voice shaking. Yeah, I said quietly. You do. Without another word, Eric grabbed his things and bolted out the door, leaving me alone with Jess. Just the way I wanted it. You think this is over? Jess asked, raising an eyebrow. You think you've won? I stepped closer, locking eyes with her. No, Jess, this isn't over. Not even close. The moment Eric fled, slamming the door behind him, the room shifted. The air between Jess and me grew colder, heavier. She leaned against the wall, arms crossed, lips curved into that same smug little smirk she always wore when she thought she was in control. Not this time. Well, she said, breaking the silence, congratulations. You scared him off. Feeling proud of yourself? I took a slow step toward her, keeping my eyes locked on hers. You think I care about Eric? He's a footnote in this mess. This is about you. Jess laughed. A cruel, hollow sound. Oh, please, spare me the righteous husband act. You're not here for answers. You just wanted to throw a tantrum. No, I shook my head. Calm now. Steady. I'm here because I wanted to see exactly who you are when no one's watching. Jess tilted her head, studying me like I was an experiment she was bored with. And now I know. I reached into my pocket and pulled out my phone. Her eyes flicked to it, curious but not concerned. Not yet. What are you doing? She asked, a hint of irritation creeping into her voice. I scrolled through my photos until I found what I was looking for. The screenshot. I turned the screen toward her. It was a picture of her text conversation with Jason. The color drained from her face for just a second before she recovered. Where did you get that? Does it matter? I stepped closer. You've been sloppy, Jess. You always thought you were smarter than me, that I wouldn't notice. But I did. And I've been paying attention for a long time now. Her jaw clenched. So what? You've got some texts? Big deal. What are you planning to do? Humiliate me? I put the phone away and shook my head. Humiliate you? No, Jess. I'm not like you. I'm not playing games. This isn't about revenge porn or some public takedown. This is about the truth. She rolled her eyes. Truth? You can't handle the truth, Noah. You've built this fantasy version of me in your head. And now you're mad that I'm not the perfect little wife you imagined. No, I'm mad because you lied, I said sharply. Because you looked me in the eyes every day and made me believe we were something real. But the whole time you were rotting inside. Her smirk faltered. And let me guess, I continued. Jason wasn't the first, was he? And Eric won't be the last. Silence. Her lips parted, like she was about to say something. To deny it, maybe. But then she stopped, because she knew it was pointless. Instead, she sighed, running a hand through her hair. You're so dramatic. Dramatic? I repeated, laughing quietly. You've been living a double life, stringing along men like puppets. And I'm the one being dramatic? Jess shrugged, the mask slipping again. The real Jess, the cold, calculating version, was stepping out from the shadows. You want the truth, Noah? Fine. Here it is. She walked closer, closing the distance between us, her eyes gleaming with defiance. I was bored. The words hit like a slap. You're predictable, stable, reliable. And at first I liked that. But over time, she smiled cruelly. It wasn't enough. I didn't move, didn't blink. I wanted excitement. I wanted to feel wanted. And yes, maybe that makes me a terrible person. But guess what? I don't care. I stared at her, heart pounding. So that's it? You wrecked everything for a thrill? Don't act so surprised, she said, shrugging. People lie. People cheat. It happens every day. Not to me, I said quietly. She laughed again. Oh, grow up, Noah. This isn't some fairy tale. You really thought we'd have the perfect life? That I'd never get bored? I shook my head slowly, the weight of her words sinking in. You think this is about boredom? No, this is about you being broken. You're not bored, Jess. You're empty. Her smirk vanished. For the first time, I saw something flicker in her eyes. Something raw, something defensive. Don't try to psychoanalyze me, she snapped. You don't know anything. I know enough, I said. I know you're never satisfied. I know you'll burn through everyone around you and never feel full. She opened her mouth to argue, but I cut her off. And I know one more thing. She froze. What? I reached into my other pocket and pulled out a small black envelope. Jess's eyes narrowed as I handed it to her. What's this? Open it. She did, tearing the envelope open with shaky hands. Inside was a single sheet of paper. Her face twisted as she read it. You've got to be kidding me. Nope, I said. It's real. The paper was a copy of the divorce papers, already signed by me. Jess glared at me, crumpling the paper in her fist. You think this is how it ends? You think you're just going to walk away and leave me behind? That's exactly what I'm going to do. She stepped closer, eyes blazing. I'll ruin you. I'll take everything. The house. The money. You'll regret this. I smiled coldly. Go ahead, Jess. Take it all. But you'll never take my peace of mind again. Her face twisted with rage. You're a fool. I nodded. Maybe. But I'm not your fool anymore. And with that, I turned and walked out the door, leaving Jess alone in the ruins she'd created. I was done being her puppet that I walked out of Eric's apartment building and into the cold night air, every step feeling like a weight lifted off my chest. For the first time in months, maybe years, I felt free. The divorce papers were done. Jess's web of lies had unraveled, and I wasn't sticking around to watch her spin a new one. I had everything I needed to walk away, or at least I thought I did. I hadn't even made it to my car when my phone buzzed in my pocket. I pulled it out, half expecting another pathetic text from Eric. But it wasn't him. It was Jess. Her message was short. We're not done. I stopped in my tracks, staring at the screen. A part of me wanted to block her number and drive off without a second thought. But something told me this wasn't over. Not yet. Moments later, another message came through. Check your email. Against my better judgment, I opened the app. There it was, an email from Jess with a single attachment. No subject line. No explanation. Just a video file. I stood there on the sidewalk, staring at it, debating whether I should even open it. Part of me didn't want to know. But the other part, the part that had spent weeks feeling like something was wrong, wouldn't let me walk away. I tapped the file. The video opened and my blood ran cold. It was me, sitting in our living room, typing away on my laptop. The angle was off, like it had been recorded from behind a bookshelf or a plant. Secretly, another clip. Me on the phone pacing the kitchen. Another. Me asleep on the couch. The realization hit me like a punch to the gut. Jess had been recording me, spying on me in my own home. My hands shook as I paused the video. The timestamp showed it was from a month ago, right around the time I started noticing things felt off. Suddenly, Jess's words echoed in my head. It takes two people to ruin a marriage. I thought I'd uncovered everything. I thought I was the one in control now. But Jess? She'd been watching me the whole time. Before I could process it, my phone buzzed again. Another message from Jess. Surprised. My thumb hovered over the keyboard. I wanted to lash out, to ask her what the hell this was, why she had been doing this. But instead, I typed something else. Why? Her reply came instantly. Because I knew you'd figure it out. You're predictable, Noah. Always trying to be the good guy, always trying to solve the puzzle. I just made sure I was one step ahead. I clenched my jaw, anger rising in my chest. She knew. She knew I'd start snooping. She knew I'd confront her. She planned for it. The video wasn't just proof that she'd been spying. It was a message. Jess wanted me to know that this wasn't over. That even as I tried to walk away, she was still pulling strings. My phone buzzed again. Another message. You think you're free? You're not. You'll never be free from me. I stared at the words, my mind racing. She wasn't bluffing. Jess was dangerous in a way I hadn't fully understood before. This wasn't about love or betrayal anymore. It was about control. And she wasn't going to let go without a fight. I shoved my phone back into my pocket, my mind spinning. I thought I'd won. I thought I'd exposed her. But Jess had been playing a deeper game all along. I got into my car and gripped the steering wheel, staring out at the empty street. My pulse was racing, my hands still shaking. Jess wasn't just a liar. She wasn't just a cheater. She was a predator. And I was still in her sights. This wasn't over. Not by a long shot that I sat in my car for what felt like hours. Her words burned into my mind. You'll never be free from me. Jess wasn't making idle threats. She was sending a clear message. This is war. And if there was one thing I knew about her, it was that she never fought fair. My phone buzzed again. I didn't want to look, but curiosity won. It was another text from Jess. This time it was a picture. Me walking into Eric's building tonight. Followed by another message. Think carefully about your next move. My stomach twisted. She was covering her tracks, making sure she could twist the story if she needed to. I could already see how she'd spin it. My husband's unhinged. He stalked me. He barged into someone's home. I clenched my fists. She was setting me up. Suddenly, I knew what I had to do. I started the car and drove. Not home. Not to a friend's place. I was heading straight to someone who could end this once and for all. 20 minutes later, I pulled up in front of a dingy apartment complex on the other side of town. The building was falling apart. Chipped paint, cracked windows, trash piled in the stairwell. I parked, got out, and marched up to the third floor. Jason's door. I knocked hard. No answer. I knocked again, louder this time. Finally, the door creaked open, and Jason peeked out, eyes bloodshot, wearing a ratty hoodie. He looked like he hadn't slept in days. You, he muttered, his voice hoarse. What the hell are you doing here? We need to talk, I said, pushing past him into the apartment. Jason didn't protest. He just sighed and closed the door behind me. The place was a mess. Empty beer cans, takeout boxes, clothes strewn everywhere. He looked like a man who'd been chewed up and spit out. And I knew exactly who had done it to him. Jess isn't done with you, I said, cutting straight to the point. Jason rubbed his face, groaning. Yeah, no kidding. She's been blowing up my phone all week. I haven't answered. She's not just calling to mess with you, I said. She's playing a bigger game. Jason's eyes narrowed. What do you mean? She's been recording me, spying on me, and now she's trying to frame me. Jason sank onto the couch, shaking his head. Jesus Christ, that woman. She's insane. No, I said, sitting across from him. She's calculated. Everything she does has a purpose. She's not just trying to hurt us. She's trying to control us. Jason looked at me for a long moment, then nodded slowly. Yeah, I see that now. I need your help, I said. His eyes widened. Help? With what? With bringing her down. Jason hesitated, biting his lip. Look, man, I want to. But Jess? She's dangerous. She'll ruin both of us. She already has, I said. But if we don't stop her, she'll keep doing it. To other people. To anyone who gets in her way. Jason ran a hand through his hair, sighing. What do you want me to do? We're going to expose her, I said, leaning in. Publicly. All of it. The lies, the affairs, the manipulation. We're going to show the world who Jess really is. Jason stared at me, fear and determination warring in his eyes. Finally, he nodded. Okay, he said. I'm in. We spent hours going through everything we had. Texts, emails, photos, videos. Jason had his own collection of messages from Jess, proving how she'd manipulated him. I had the screenshots, the video recordings, the divorce papers. Piece by piece, we built our case. By the time the sun started to rise, we had everything we needed. And we had a plan. 3 days later, Jess's world imploded. It started with a post on social media. An anonymous account. A simple caption. This is who Jessica Nolan really is. Attached was a folder of files, texts, videos, audio recordings. Proof of her affairs. Proof of her lies. Proof of her cruelty. Within hours, it went viral. People from her work started commenting. Her friends. even people I didn't recognize. The comments flooded in. I had no idea she was like this. I always thought something was off about her. Wow, what a monster. Jess tried to do damage control, but it was too late. Her reputation was shattered. And for the first time in years, I felt something I hadn't felt in a long time. Peace. A week later, Jess showed up at my door. She looked disheveled, desperate. Her usual confidence was gone. She was falling apart. Noah, she said quietly, can we talk? I stared at her, unmoved. Why? So you can lie some more? Tears welled in her eyes, but I wasn't falling for it. Not this time. I lost everything, she whispered. My job, my friends. People won't even look at me. I folded my arms. Sounds like karma. Her expression twisted with anger. You think you've won, don't you? You think this is over? I leaned against the doorframe, smiling coldly. Oh, Jess, it's over. She shook her head. You don't get it. I'll rebuild. I'll come back from this. And when I do, you won't. I cut her off. Because you're done. Jess glared at me for a long moment, then turned and walked away. For good. As I closed the door, I felt a strange sense of relief. Jess had spent years trying to control me, trying to break me, but in the end, she was the one who fell apart.